Hi guys, today to help you with probably one of the hardest things to do as a writer, and that's actually to start writing. You can draft all you want, you can brainstorm all you want, but it is very hard to get those ideas started on a piece of paper. So I will say honestly, narrative writing is not my strong suit as an English teacher. So I totally can empathize with you if you're struggling to start. So what I'm going to show you is what I do to start. It will never be perfect your first time. And if you try for perfection on the first go, I promise you will not find success. And I say that because after everything we've done since the beginning of the school year, all the interviews you've watched, all the articles you've read, you see that every writer, every true author said one thing in common, and that was that they wrote lots and lots and lots of drafts. Each time you improve, you fill in, you add, you take out. Characters will come alive, but this is through a process. So I'm going to show you how I'm just going to get my ideas down on paper and write a really basic and not so good rough draft, because this way now I have a structure to go on. I have my basics in my narrative, and now I can really develop my ideas. Remember this. If your brain is full of ideas, sometimes you don't have any more room for ideas. So you've got to get those ideas out and onto the piece of paper so you can fill your brain back up with new ideas. Okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the graphic organizer from the last video that I created in just a few minutes. Share. Okay. So here is the graphic organizer that I used in yesterday's video. And I just summarized, it's my story map. I summarized the events, the characters, where it took place, and the events going around my COVID story. So the directions for your assignment today are to open up a 365 document and type your rough draft. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to minimize this. I'm going to show you how to get to 365. Now, a lot of you are used to opening up Word down here. Don't want you to do that because that's not what the assignment says. The assignment says go to your 365. So library links right here. You're going to go to your 365 right here, and you're going to log in if it tells you to. And then you'll come to this screen. Now you can get Word right here, or if your screen doesn't look like mine, you just go to your waffle in the upper corner and you go to Word. You open up a new blank document. Now it will title it document 6 or document 1. I bet you if you go to your 365, every one of you probably has a document 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because nobody ever changes the title. So let's just do that first. So we're going to say English 12 narrative. And I want you to put your name. So I'm going to put Astrid. That will help your teacher and it will help you. And there we go. Now it's changed. Now you can type directly in here and it will continue to edit as a live document. I have a hard time typing in the app or online because sometimes it glitches and it's slow, and that's because it's continuously saving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open in the desktop app. Because then I have more features, and then on top of that, it doesn't glitch. So you can see I have them, and I'm going to actually put my screens side by side. So this way, I can kind of follow my rough draft. I can write my rough draft by following my story map. So first I'm going to put, let's see, we got to head it. So I'm going to put Colleen Osterman. Narrative essay. English 12, and then you would probably put your teacher. And then today's date is 10, 12. Okay. So how do we start? Now we have a blank page and we freeze. This is called writer's block. Everybody gets it. How do I start? Well, if you're struggling with how to start, don't try to think of some crazy creative way to get your reader into it right away. If that doesn't come naturally to you, just write down what you have in your story map. Now, if you're a really creative writer and you already have your hook and you already know, then go for it. That's also okay, and that's wonderful. But personally, I think it's better to get my ideas down on paper and then come back and make edits and improvements. Okay, let's start. It's called A Moment When I Had to Overcome an Obstacle. Okay, so I'm a moment when I had to overcome it. And I think on my second graphic organizer, I gave it a title because already I was starting to make improvements. Ooh, my COVID dilemma. Okay, so I'm going to retitle that. COVID dilemma. Ooh, nice. All right, so that I'm going to center. Okay, and did you notice how I didn't change any fonts? I didn't change it to size 18, 28, change it to some script crazy print. They don't want you to do that in high school, and they definitely don't want you to do it in college. So leave it the way it is. Okay, so how do I want to introduce it? Let's see, I have to introduce the characters, the setting, and the problem within the first paragraph or so. So I don't have a creative hook right now, so I'm just going to get to the basics. It was a typical mid-March day at school. You know, the month that never ends. March is the only month in the school year that doesn't have a holiday break. Not even one. So by the middle of March, I am typically exhausted. Okay, so I know I introduced because it's mid-March, and I didn't say anything about Syracuse. So I'm typically exhausted and cold. And thinking about summer vacation. Okay, so now I've mentioned the time and the location. So we can get rid of setting, knock it off. We can check it right off. Okay, so the characters, me, my family, my students, and my work friends. Okay, so I know that my beginning of my story is this event one. The action begins when all of us teachers were sitting around eating lunch in A317. And my classroom and Mrs. Bucktooth said that they really thought a shutdown was going to happen. Well, I was specific in this event one, so I don't need to really redo it. For a rough draft, that's good. So I have my setting. I remember it clearly. And I'm just going to copy this. And I'm just going to make sure this all looks the same. Okay, so what I can knock off the beginning of my story. I can check off my setting. I can check off, I've at least introduced my work friends. And then, but I haven't introduced me. So let's see what we have so far. It was a typical mid-March day at school. You know, the month that never ends. You see, March is the only month in the school year that doesn't have a holiday break. See, I can already see typos. Not even one. So by the middle of March, I am typically exhausted and cold. I think I need to introduce myself somewhere here. Say, oh, I forgot to tell you. My name is Colleen, but the kids call me Mrs. O for short. I teach 11th grade at the Syracuse City School District. And in all, I am. Okay, so I had to edit a little bit, and then I just went back and made sure it all blended. So let's reread this again, because I should have, 1, introduced the characters, 2, introduced some sort of setting, 3, introduced the problem, which was handling quarantine, and 4, I maybe began my events, maybe not. And it might not be good, but I've got my juices flowing, and now I know where I'm going to go. So let's read it. It was a typical mid-March day at school, the month that never ends. You see, March is the only month in the school year that doesn't have a holiday break, not even one. So by the middle of March, I'm typically exhausted and cold. Oh, I forgot to tell you, my name is Colleen Osterman, but the kids call me Mrs. O for short. I teach 11th grade at the Syracuse City School District, and all I am thinking about is summer vacation. I remember it clearly. This is probably good start to a new paragraph. And that's kind of why the events come down here, because you introduce this in your intro and then you go into your events. So what have I still not introduced in my first paragraph? Handling quarantine. Okay, let's come back. I teach 11th grade in the Syracuse City School District, and all I'm thinking about is summer vacation. Little did I know that my senioritis, which is not really a word. Senioritis is when you're itching for summer vacation or you're itching to graduate. So a lot of seniors get this. So my senioritis and summer vacation longing would soon seem petty and my senioritis and summer vacation longing would soon seem petty as the pending doom of COVID would soon be upon us. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so now in my intro, I have my setting, I have some of my characters, and I have my problem. And I already am going right into my events. So this is the first event. I remember it clearly. The action begins when all of us teachers were sitting around eating lunch in A317, my classroom, and Mrs. Bucktooth said that she really thought a shutdown was going to happen. So for now, like in this paragraph, now I just want to go into detail. I'm going to say, like normal, I was the last one to use the microwave. I entered the conversation late, but I could tell already that what they were talking about was very serious. Okay. And you know what? Now I'm going to keep I'm going to keep going on until I have nothing else to write about this. And even if you get stuck and this is all you have, that's okay. Don't stop writing. Go to your next paragraph. If you have a brain freeze, you got everything out that you thought you could get out, move on. This is only a draft. So now I'm going to go on to my next event. Then I went home and had the same conversation with my husband and brother. Okay. After leaving school, I quickly hurried home to discuss the possibility of a shutdown with my family. Okay. I know that conversation, I know how that conversation went, but I can't remember it. So instead of having a writer's block, instead of freezing, I'm just going to say add more here when you think of it. And see how I put that in bold? So now I'm telling myself, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this right now. I'm just going to move on. But I know I need to add more detail here later. So let's my next sequence of events. Next, we had an emergency email and found out that we would, in fact, be shutting down. The next morning, our principal called an emergency meeting in the cafeteria. Teachers hustled in, anxiously awaiting further information about this coronavirus and how it would affect school. And then I'm going to write as much as I can, and then I'm going to move on to my next event. Next, March 17th was somewhat of a blur. The next 6 weeks, I was in survival mode, just trying not to drown my emotions, my work, and still be a good mom. I really like that. I think when I did my outline, I had an idea of what I wanted to say. And I said it. So this is what you're going to do. Okay, so you're just going to go through your outline, add in the detail when it comes to you, and then if it doesn't come to you, if you have a brain freeze, just skip the rest of that, move on to your next paragraph. This is simply your first draft, and you're going to go through until the end. Now, I know how I want mine to end. I know that I wanted to end with this. The solution was rest, flexibility, hope, and love, and an understanding that I can't fix or do it all. So I'm going to write that in here because I know that in my sequence of events, I eventually want to get to this place. And sometimes when we write, we forget where we're going. Okay, so, in only a matter of 10 minutes, I already took just this little amount right here and turned it into all of this. And I still haven't even done half of my bulleted events that I put into my sequence of events in my graphic organizer. Just remember, the first draft is never very good. It's just about getting your ideas on paper. Over the next 2 weeks, you'll spend the time refining it. You'll add in imagery, you'll add in dialogue, you'll add in a hook, and you'll add in some kind of, if you need some kind of boom conclusion or anything else that you feel like your narrative needs, you do that in your further drafts. I hope this helped. Good luck. And remember, don't have brain freeze. Don't have writer's block. Just get your ideas down on paper the first time. That is your only goal.